The first light of dawn hadn't yet touched London's skyline when Marcus Thompson pushed through the revolving doors of Whitmore Financial Corporation. His weathered hands, marked by 60 years of life's trials, gripped the handle of his cleaning cart with the same quiet dignity he'd carried for 15 years through these marble halls. The building slept in that precious hour before ambition would flood its veins, and Marcus treasured these moments of solitude like morning prayer. He moved through the executive floor with practiced grace, each movement deliberate and careful. The photographs on the mahogany desks told stories of lives he'd never live: skiing trips to Switzerland, yacht parties in Monaco, children in Eton uniforms. Marcus dusted them all with equal care, understanding that even these symbols of privilege deserved respect. His mother in Kingston had taught him that lesson well. How you treat the small things, Marcus, that's who you really are. The 60-year-old's reflection caught in the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Canary Wharf. Grey had conquered most of his hair now, and lines mapped the geography of loss across his weathered face. 3 years since Patricia had passed. 3 years of returning to an empty flat in Brixton, of cooking for one, of talking to her photograph as if she might answer back. The job wasn't just about the modest wage anymore. It was about the rhythm, the purpose, the reason to rise each morning. "Morning, Marcus." Sarah Chen's voice broke through his reverie. The young analyst was always first among the office workers, her ambition tempered by genuine kindness. She held 2 cups of coffee from the cafe downstairs, offering one to him with a smile that reminded him of his daughter, somewhere in Canada now, too busy for calls. "You don't have to do that, Miss Sarah," Marcus said, though he accepted the cup gratefully. His accent still carried the music of Jamaica, softened by decades in London, but never fully surrendered. The elevator chimed, and Oliver Hartley emerged like a storm cloud in a £3,000 suit. Even at 7 in the morning, his cologne announced his arrival before his footsteps did. His eyes, cold and calculating, swept the floor before landing on Marcus with barely concealed disgust. "Still here, Thompson?" Oliver's voice dripped with false surprise. "I thought we discussed efficiency in yesterday's staff meeting. This floor should have been finished an hour ago." Marcus straightened but didn't respond immediately. He'd learned that silence often said more than words. Sarah shifted uncomfortably beside him. "I asked you a question." Oliver stepped closer, using his height advantage like a weapon. "Or has your hearing gone the way of your speed? The floor will be ready before 8, Mr. Hartley, as it always is." Marcus's voice remained steady, a lighthouse in Oliver's manufactured storm. Oliver's jaw tightened. He despised that calm, that refusal to cower. "We have the Wellington Investment Group arriving today. Americans expect a certain standard." His eyes deliberately scanned Marcus's worn uniform. "Perhaps you should work from the lower floors today. We wouldn't want any misunderstandings about the caliber of our operation." "Whatever you think is best, Mr. Hartley," Marcus replied with dignified composure. "Good man, know your place." Oliver strode toward his corner office, pausing only to add, "Oh, and Thompson, do something about that smell. We can't have the whole floor reeking of whatever it is you people eat." The door closed with executive authority, leaving silence in its wake. The lower floors of Whitmore Financial hummed with different energy than the executive suites. Here, Marcus found himself among the junior staff, the interns, the security guards, the foundation upon which the Golden Tower rested. He'd been cleaning the third-floor conference rooms for 2 hours when Roberto, the security guard from São Paulo, found him. "Marcus, my friend, why are you down here? This isn't your usual floor." Roberto's concern was genuine, his English heavily accented but warm. Marcus wrung out his mop, watching the dirty water swirl down the drain. "Mr. Hartley thought it best I work down here today. Important visitors coming." Roberto's face darkened with understanding. He'd been watching Oliver Hartley for 2 years, seen how the executive treated anyone he deemed beneath him. That man, he doesn't know respect. As Marcus worked, his mind drifted to another life, another time. 25 years ago, he'd stood in a conference room not unlike this one in Kingston, presenting his import business proposal to investors. He'd worn his best suit, practiced his pitch until Patricia could recite it herself. The numbers had been solid, the projections conservative but promising. One of those investors had been a young American, desperate and on the verge of bankruptcy, James Wellington. Marcus had seen something in James that others hadn't, not potential for profit, but genuine desperation mixed with determination. Against all business logic, Marcus had given James a partnership, even lent him money from his personal savings. "Every man deserves a second chance," he'd told Patricia when she'd questioned the decision. The business had thrived for 5 years. Then came Patricia's diagnosis, stage 3 cancer. The medical bills mounted like mountains. The British healthcare system covered much, but not the experimental treatment in Switzerland that offered hope. Marcus had sold his share of the business to James, accepting far less than its worth because he needed the money quickly. James had promised to buy him back in when things stabilized, but Patricia died anyway, and Marcus found himself in London, starting over at 55 with nothing but grief and determination. "Marcus," Sarah's voice pulled him back to the present. She stood in the doorway, slightly out of breath. "I've been looking everywhere for you. Listen, I wanted you to know that not everyone here is like Oliver. Most of us see what you do, how hard you work." She hesitated, then added in a lower voice, "I've been watching him, Marcus. Oliver, I mean. There's something off about the Patterson account numbers. They don't match the reports he's been sending to the board." Marcus's hands stilled on the mop handle. He'd noticed the same thing 3 months ago while emptying Oliver's waste bin. Carelessly discarded drafts with different figures, USB drives left on desks with files that told different stories. He'd said nothing, filed it away in the same part of his mind that stored every slight, every insult, every moment of calculated cruelty. The building's intercom crackled to life. "All department heads to the main conference room. The Wellington Investment Group has arrived." Sarah checked her phone with surprise. "They're early. Oliver will be scrambling." She looked back at Marcus with concern. "Be careful today, okay? Oliver's been especially vindictive lately. The merger depends on this meeting." As she hurried away, Marcus returned to his work, but his mind was elsewhere. James Wellington. After all these years, their paths would cross again in the most unexpected way. Around 11, Marcus was urgently called to the executive floor. Someone had spilled coffee in the main conference room during the presentation. The elevator ride felt longer than usual, each floor marking another step toward a moment he couldn't quite define. When the doors opened, Marcus could hear Oliver's voice booming from the conference room, full of false confidence and barely contained anxiety. Through the glass doors, he could see the scene. A dozen executives around the polished table, 3 visitors in sharp American suits, and Oliver standing at the presentation screen, his face flushed with importance. Marcus entered quietly, immediately moving to the spilled coffee near the center of the table. As he knelt to clean it, he felt eyes on him. Slowly, he looked up and met the gaze of James Wellington. Older now, silver-haired, successful, but unmistakably the same man. James's eyes widened, recognition flickering across his face like lightning illuminating a dark sky. "As I was saying," Oliver continued, oblivious to the silent exchange, "our projections for the Patterson account show a 23% increase in—" "Excuse me," James interrupted, his voice carrying an emotion that filled the room. "I'm sorry, but could we take a brief recess?" Oliver's practiced smile strained at the edges. "Of course, Mr. Wellington." 15 minutes? But James was already standing, walking around the table toward Marcus, who had finished cleaning and was preparing to leave. "Excuse me," James called out, his voice thick with something Oliver couldn't identify. "Sir, could I speak with you for a moment?" The room fell into stunned silence. Oliver's face transformed from red to white in seconds. "Mr. Wellington, that's just the janitor. I can have him. I asked to speak with him," James said firmly, his tone brooking no argument. He extended his hand to Marcus. "Marcus Thompson, it's been far too long, old friend." Marcus looked at the extended hand, then at Oliver's stunned face, then back to James. Slowly, with the dignity that had carried him through 15 years of invisibility, he shook James Wellington's hand. "Hello, James," Marcus said simply. "You're looking well." The conference room erupted in whispers. Oliver stood frozen, his carefully constructed presentation forgotten, watching his world tilt on an axis he hadn't known existed. The janitor he'd humiliated daily for years was somehow connected to the man who held his company's future in his hands. The executive lounge had never seen a janitor sit in its leather chairs, but James Wellington didn't care about protocol. He guided Marcus to a private corner, his hand on the older man's shoulder with familiarity that sent shockwaves through the watching staff. Oliver had followed them, uninvited but unable to stay away, his face a mask of confusion and growing dread. "Marcus Thompson," James said, his voice heavy with emotion. 25 years, and I've looked for you everywhere. After you left Kingston, you just vanished." Marcus sat carefully, aware of his work uniform against the expensive leather. "Life took me where it needed to, James. I see it's been kind to you." "Kind?" James laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Marcus, everything I have, everything I've built, it started with your faith in me. That £30,000 you lent me when no bank would even look at my business plan. That partnership you offered when I was days from bankruptcy." Oliver, standing awkwardly by the door, felt his throat constrict. £30,000 25 years ago would be worth. His mind raced through calculations while his carefully ordered world crumbled. "You paid me back," Marcus said quietly. "With interest, as I recall." "I paid back the money, yes. But how do you pay back someone who saved your life? Who showed you what real integrity looks like?" James's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "When I heard Patricia had passed, when I tried to find you to help, to do something, anything, you disappeared. And now I find you here, being treated like..." He turned to look at Oliver, and his expression hardened like steel. Oliver stepped forward, his voice stammering. "Mr. Wellington, I had no idea. Marcus never said..." "Why would he?" James stood, his full height matching Oliver's, but his presence dwarfing him. "Would it have mattered? Would you have treated him with basic human dignity if you'd known?" Sarah had appeared in the doorway, along with several other employees drawn by the commotion. She watched Oliver's face cycle through emotions, confusion, fear, and finally desperate calculation. "Marcus," James continued, turning back to his old friend, "what happened? The business was thriving. You had a dozen employees, contracts across the Caribbean. Patricia got sick," Marcus said simply. "Cancer, the treatment in Switzerland, it cost everything. You offered a fair price for my shares, more than fair. It just wasn't enough in the end." James's face crumpled. "If I'd known. God, Marcus, if I'd only known." "You couldn't have. I didn't want you to. You had your own family to think about, your own path to walk." Marcus stood, straightening his uniform. "I should get back to work." "Work?" James's voice rose. "Marcus, you don't have to..." He stopped, understanding dawning. "This is your dignity, isn't it? This is your choice." Marcus nodded, and for the first time that day he smiled, a real smile that transformed his weathered face. "We all serve in our own way, James. There's no shame in honest work." Oliver cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should return to the presentation, the Patterson account that you've been falsifying numbers for." Sarah's voice cut through the room like a blade. All eyes turned to her. "The one where you've been skimming funds into an offshore account." The color drained from Oliver's face entirely. That's a serious accusation." "You have no proof." "Actually," Marcus said quietly, "she does." The boardroom had transformed into a courtroom. James Wellington sat at the head of the table, flanked by his associates and the entire board of directors hastily summoned. Oliver stood at the far end, his expensive suit suddenly seeming like costume armor, failing to protect him from the truth closing in. Marcus stood beside Sarah, who was connecting her laptop to the presentation screen. In his hands, he held a manila folder, worn at the edges from being hidden in his locker for 3 months. Mr. Wellington, the chairman of Whitmore Financial, Sir Edward Blackstone, spoke with barely controlled anger. These are very serious allegations. I hope you understand the gravity. With respect, Sir Edward, James interrupted. I think we should hear what they have to say. In my experience, Marcus Thompson has never spoken a word that wasn't true. Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard. 3 months ago, I noticed discrepancies in the Patterson account. Small at first, a few thousand here and there, but they grew. The screen filled with spreadsheets, 2 sets side by side. On the left, the reports Mr. Hartley submitted to the board. On the right, the actual transactions I pulled from our internal servers. The differences were staggering. Where Oliver had reported a £2 million investment yielding 23% returns, the actual documents showed $3 million invested with only 8% returns. The missing money had been filtered through a complex web of transactions. This is preposterous, Oliver's voice cracked. You can't simply trust a janitor and a junior analyst. A janitor who was once my business partner, James said coolly. A man who built a successful import empire from nothing. A man whose business acumen I've tried to emulate for 25 years. Marcus stepped forward, opening his folder. Mr. Hartley has a habit of throwing away his drafts in his office bin. Perhaps he thought a janitor wouldn't understand financial documents. He laid out several crumpled papers, smoothed carefully. These are his handwritten calculations, showing exactly how to move money from Patterson to an account in the Cayman Islands. Oliver lunged for the papers, but Roberto, who'd been standing by the door, stepped forward to block him. I don't think so, Mr. Hartley. Sir Edward was on his phone, speaking rapidly to someone. When he hung up, his face was grave. Security and the authorities are on their way up. Oliver, I suggest you sit down and remain quiet until they arrive. But Oliver wasn't finished. His face contorted with rage as he turned on Marcus. You did this. You've been planning this, haven't you? Pretending to be just a stupid cleaner, but you were waiting. I was doing my job, Marcus said with quiet dignity. Every day for 15 years, I've done my job. I cleaned your office. I emptied your bins. I listened to you insult me, belittle me, try to strip me of my humanity. And yes, I noticed what you were doing, but I said nothing because it wasn't my place. Until you tried to humiliate me in front of James. Until you made it clear that my silence was enabling you to hurt others. Sarah added, Marcus didn't come to me. I went to him when I noticed the discrepancies. He confirmed what I suspected but insisted we wait for the right moment. He wanted to make sure we had enough proof. The right moment being when your old friend showed up, Oliver sneered. The right moment being when you were about to defraud James's company of £50 million in this merger, Marcus replied. I couldn't let that happen, not to him, not to anyone. The boardroom doors opened and several security officers entered, followed by 2 detectives. As they read Oliver his rights and placed him in handcuffs, he made one last desperate attempt. You think you've won? He spat at Marcus. You're still nothing. You're still just a cleaner. You'll always be beneath people like me. Marcus watched him being led away, then turned to face the room. Mr. Hartley is right about one thing. I'm a cleaner. I've been cleaning this building for 15 years. But today I cleaned up the biggest mess of all. The afternoon sun streamed through the executive boardroom windows, casting golden rays across the mahogany table where, just hours before, Oliver Hartley's empire had crumbled. The air thrummed with anticipation as Sir Edward Blackstone, chairman of Whitmore Financial, stood at the head of the table, his weathered face etched with both shame and determination. Mr. Thompson, Sir Edward's voice carried 7 decades of authority, now tempered with genuine humility. On behalf of this institution, I owe you more than an apology. For 15 years, you've walked these halls with grace, while we failed to see the giant among us. Marcus stood in his janitor's uniform, yet his presence filled the room more completely than any executive ever had. Sir Edward, I don't seek apologies. I seek change, real change. For Roberto, who protects this building every night. For Elena, who ensures your world sparkles each morning. For every soul whose labor remains invisible while building your empires. James Wellington leaned forward, tears threatening to spill. Marcus, please, come work with me. We'll rebuild everything we had in Kingston, but greater. I've carried this debt for 25 years. There is no debt between friends, Marcus interrupted gently, his Jamaican accent warming the words. You were drowning and I threw you a rope. Years later, when Patricia was dying, you threw one back. That's not debt, James, that's life. The room held its breath as Marcus walked to the window, gazing at London's skyline. But I will accept something else, a position on this board. Not for prestige, but because this company needs someone who knows that its true foundation isn't in this penthouse. It's in the basement where the real work begins. You want to remain a janitor and serve on our board? Sir Edward's voice cracked with disbelief. No. Marcus turned, his eyes blazing with purpose. I want to create something new, a department of employee dignity and welfare. Every person in this building should know their worth isn't measured by their floor number, but by their contribution to our shared humanity. Sarah couldn't contain herself. We could offer education programs, counseling services, advancement pathways. Miss Chen will be my deputy, Marcus announced, smiling at her gasp. She showed courage when silence would have been safer. That's the kind of leadership we need. James stood, crossing to embrace Marcus, a long, wordless moment that spoke of journeys shared and debts that transcend money. Then Wellington Investment Group will fund everything. Consider it interest on the loan you gave my soul. About your salary, Sir Edward began. My current wage plus £1, Marcus stated. The rest goes to the programs. I've lived on this salary for 15 years. I need change, not money. Roberto stepped forward from the doorway, emotion breaking his professional composure. Mr. Marcus, I know every guard, every cleaner, their children's names, their dreams. Then you're exactly who I need, Roberto. Sir Edward extended his hand, not the perfunctory gesture of business, but the clasp of respect. Oliver's office is yours. I'll take it, Marcus nodded, but with glass walls, no more secrets, and my cart stays. Why? Sir Edward asked. To remember that the hands that clean can also lead. That service isn't servitude. That dignity isn't granted. It's inherent. As the sun painted the room gold, Marcus touched the window where Patricia's memory lived. She always said I was meant for more. Neither of us imagined this path. The best journeys never follow our maps, James said softly. They follow our character. 6 months later, Marcus stood in his transformed office, glass walls reflecting the morning light. His cleaning cart gleamed in the corner, not a relic but a reminder. The Financial Times lay on his desk, Whitmore's Revolution, when humanity becomes policy. Sarah rushed in, excitement radiating. Marcus, the employee program has enrolled 300 people. Roberto's getting his management certification, 3 former janitors are now analysts, and Sir Edward had lunch with the mailroom staff yesterday. Marcus smiled, adjusting his simple suit while keeping his comfortable work shoes. Some things were worth preserving. It's not revolutionary, Sarah. It's just human. The transformation ran deep. The executive dining room had become an all-staff cafe, where hierarchies dissolved over shared meals. The welfare fund had provided school scholarships for 60 children of service staff. Mental health support was available to everyone, from CEOs to night cleaners. The board meeting starts in 5, Sarah reminded him. James has something special planned. In the boardroom, now inclusive of representatives from every department, James stood holding a worn leather journal. You left this in Kingston, Marcus. Your business plans, your dreams. I've kept it 25 years, hoping to return it. Marcus's hands trembled as he opened it. Patricia's handwriting bloomed across the first page. For my brilliant husband, may your dreams always be bigger than your fears. She would be so proud, James whispered. Marcus cleared his throat, emotion thick. She always said success wasn't measured in pounds, but in lives touched. By that measure, we're all wealthy. Sir Edward stood. The board has voted. Your programs haven't just improved morale, productivity is up 37%. We're making everything permanent and expanding globally." Applause erupted, but Marcus raised his hand. "There's one more matter. Oliver Hartley has written from prison." Silence fell like a curtain. "He's asked to join our rehabilitation program upon release. He wants forgiveness, but more importantly, he wants to change." "You can't be serious," someone gasped. Marcus walked to the window, London sprawling beneath him. 25 years ago, James got a second chance when I could have said no. 15 years ago, I got one when London opened its doors to a grieving widower. Even Oliver deserves the opportunity to discover who he might be without fear and privilege poisoning his soul. "After everything?" Sarah asked, incredulous. "Especially after everything. Patricia used to say that grudges are cages we build for ourselves. I've been free too long to start building now." A knock interrupted. Elena, the Romanian cleaner, entered hesitantly. "Mr. Marcus, my son, he got into Westminster School, the company scholarship. You changed our lives." Marcus embraced her as she wept. "You changed your own life, Elena. We just opened the door." Later, alone in his office, Marcus stood before Patricia's photograph, now prominently displayed. Roberto entered quietly. "The night shift wanted me to give you this," he said, handing Marcus a plaque. It read, "To Marcus Thompson, who saw us when we were invisible." Marcus's eyes filled. "We were never invisible, Roberto. The world just had its eyes closed." As evening painted London in shades of amber and gold, Marcus walked through the building. In the lobby, he stopped at a new addition, a wall of photographs featuring every employee, from Sir Edward to the newest cleaner, all equal in size and prominence. Below, an inscription, "Every hand builds our success." Young Thomas, a new janitor from Ghana, was mopping nearby. Marcus picked up a second mop. "Mr. Thompson, you don't have to." "I want to," Marcus replied, falling into the familiar rhythm. "This is where I learned that dignity isn't about the work you do, but how you do it. That respect isn't earned through position, but through character." They cleaned together in companionable silence until Thomas asked, "Is it true? What they say about you and Mr. Hartley? What do they say? That you destroyed him with kindness? That your dignity was so bright it revealed his darkness?" Marcus paused, considering. "I didn't destroy anyone, Thomas. I just refused to let anyone destroy me. There's a difference." As they worked, employees leaving late stopped to watch. The director of employee dignity and welfare mopping floors with a janitor, both men moving with the same grace, the same purpose. "Mr. Thompson," Thomas ventured, "do you miss being invisible?" Marcus smiled, remembering Patricia's words from that last hospital visit. "You were never invisible, my love. You were just waiting for the world to adjust its vision." "No, Thomas, I was never invisible. I was just cleaning in places where the lights hadn't been turned on yet. Now the whole building is illuminated." James appeared in the lobby, taking in the scene. Without a word, he grabbed a mop from the supply closet and joined them. Then Sarah, then Roberto. Soon a dozen people were cleaning together, executives, analysts, security guards, all moving in harmony. Sir Edward arrived for his evening briefing, stopped short by the sight. After a moment, he removed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and picked up a cloth to polish the reception desk. "You know," Sir Edward said to no one in particular, "in 40 years of running this company, this is the first time I've understood what we're actually building." "And what's that?" Marcus asked. "A place where everyone matters." As the night deepened and the cleaning finished, they stood together in the gleaming lobby. Marcus looked at each face. James, who'd learned that success means lifting others. Sarah, who'd found her voice. Roberto, whose dreams were finally possible. Sir Edward, who'd discovered leadership meant service. "Patricia always said the universe has perfect timing," Marcus said softly. "That everything happens when it's meant to. 15 years of invisibility prepared me for this moment of being seen, not for fame or recognition, but to show others they were never invisible either." The city lights twinkled beyond the glass doors, millions of stories unfolding in the darkness. But here, In this transformed space, one story had reached its perfect conclusion, not with revenge or triumph, but with the simple, revolutionary act of recognizing the dignity in every human soul. Marcus looked at his reflection in the polished floor. Janitor, director, teacher, friend, all one person, finally whole. Patricia had been right all along. He had been meant for something more. Not more than cleaning, but more through cleaning. Cleaning away prejudice, cleaning away invisibility, cleaning away the barriers that separated human from human. "Same time tomorrow?" Thomas asked with a grin. "Wouldn't miss it," Marcus replied. "After all, someone has to keep this place clean." As they dispersed into the London night, each carrying a piece of the transformation within them, Marcus remained for a moment in the quiet lobby. He placed his hand on his old cart, feeling its familiar weight, remembering every corridor it had traveled, every slight it had witnessed, every moment it had sustained him. "Thank you," he whispered, to the cart, to Patricia's memory, to the journey that had brought him here. Then, Marcus Thompson, janitor, director, and living proof that dignity is the most powerful force in any building, turned off the lights and headed home, ready for tomorrow's work. All of it.